Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, April 17th, 2026. I'm Ed Kabik, November 2 Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we've got a contest spotlight for the CQMM DX Contest. MFJ sells its Cushcraft and High Gain brands to ITU. Got an event spotlight for Parks on the Air, Support Your Parks Weekend, on April 18th and 19th. Also, World Amateur Radio Day is April 18th. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, and talk about interesting online radio content. As always, links to all the reference content can be found in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. This weekend brings the 2026 edition of the CQMM DX Contest from 900 UTC on Saturday, April 18th. That's 5 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday until 23:59 UTC on Sunday. That's 7:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. This contest seeks to promote unity and integration of amateur radio operators around the world, support the chase for 2 CWJF awards in Brazil, and to promote the art of CW around the world. To that end, it is a CW-only contest on the 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10-meter bands. Although it is organized in Brazil, it is an international contest, and participants are grouped by continents. Power classifications include high power, that's up to 1,500 watts, or local maximum power, where you're licensed, low power, up to 100 watts, and QRP, up to 5 watts. Operating categories include multi-operator single transmitter, all band for high power and low power, single operator single transmitter for all band and high power, low power, and also QRP, single operator single band for high power and low power, and single operator all band for a station run by a YL. The rules allow for the use of DX clusters and skimmers during the contest, and contacts are considered valid when validated by both ops logs, unless a missing op is at least in 5 other logs. So if you participate, it's recommended that you submit a log, even if you're just participating casually. Contacts may be made 1 QSO per band per station. When calling CQ, it's recommended to send test CQMM call, where call is your call sign, but CQ test MM is also acceptable. For the exchange, members of the CWJF will send RST plus continent plus M, so for a South American station, it would be 599 SAM. Non-members will send RST and continent, so for North American stations, 599 NA. QRP stations will send RST plus continent plus Q, so a European QRP station would be 599 EUQ. YL stations send RST plus continent plus Y, so YL in Oceania would be 599 OCY, and multi-op stations would send RST plus continent plus C, so an African club station would send 599 AFC. Valid continent abbreviations are Africa AF, South America SA, North America NA, Asia AS, Europe EU, Oceania OC, and Antarctica AN. QSO points are 1 point within the same DXCC entity, 2 points on the same continent but different DXCC entity on 10, 15, and 20 meters, and 4 points on 40 and 80 meters, 3 points between different continents on 10, 15, and 20 meters, and 6 points on 40 and 80 meters, and 10 points with CWJF members and YLs regardless of location, and 3 points for maritime mobile stations regardless of location. Multipliers include different prefixes in South America, valid for all 5 bands separately, and DXCC entities are valid just once. Maritime mobiles don't count as a valid multiplier. The final score is the sum of the points for all the bands multiplied by the sum of multipliers. Certificates will be available for all participants, and plaques will be awarded for the highest score in each category, regardless of continent. Logs should be submitted electronically to CWJF at CQMMDX.com in Cabrillo 3.0 format by July 30th. More information on the contest and the full rules can be found at CQMMDX.com/rules. This promises to be a fun one, so give it a try this weekend. Good luck. MFJ Enterprises announced that they have sold Cushcraft and High Gain brands to ITU Corporation. Cushcraft and High Gain have a long history of making antennas for the amateur radio market, along with other related accessories. In May 2024, MFJ shut down on-site production at their Starkville, Mississippi facility, which impacted the production of these brands' products. With the acquisition of the brands by ITU, the brands should return to manufacturing. ITU plans to open a production facility in Linton, Indiana that is expected to bring 20 to 50 jobs to the area. All the designs, equipment, and rights for the brands were included with the sale. ITU estimates it'll take about 2 months to move the equipment from Mississippi to Indiana. More information can be found at a link in the show notes. This weekend brings Parks on the Air's Support Your Parks Weekend. The weekend is a quarterly event which encourages operators to get out into the parks and onto the air and have as much fun as possible. The excitement begins at 0 UTC on Saturday, that's 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday night, until 23:59 UTC on Sunday, that's 7:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. Usually there are hundreds of operators out in the parks and lots of opportunities to get less frequently activated parks and locations in the log. There are also special awards to win for activating or hunting during the event. For more information and spotting assistance, visit poda.app. Good luck. Saturday, April 18th marks the 101st anniversary of the founding of the International Amateur Radio Union, or IARU, and to celebrate, amateurs around the world are getting on the air for World Amateur Radio Day. The American Radio Relay League, an IARU member society, is encouraging amateurs to celebrate by having an amateur radio open house or by getting on the air and getting word out to the community. There are likely to be several IARU member societies on the air during the day, so check the bands and spotting networks to find stations to celebrate with on the air. More information, including maps of expected open house events, can be found at ARRL's site, and also more information can be found on the IARU site. Both links are in the show notes. Good luck. And now let's talk about some MVARC Nets on the air. We have our 2-meter FM net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater, immediately followed by the digital net on the same frequency using Yaesu's System Fusion C4 FM. On the weekends, we have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz CW, and that is followed by the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. And now let's take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include Svalbard, Marquesas Islands, Bermuda, Gambia, Comoros, Central Kiribati, Minami-Torishima, Colombia, and South Orkney Islands. A calendar of DX expeditions can be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it's time for a solar activity update as we go to press. The Solar Flux Index, or SFI, was 105, and the estimated sunspot number was 57, with 3 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. Solar activity has been at low levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been at quiet levels in the last 24 hours, and the KP index reached 1 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 355 kilometers per second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at quiet to major storm levels today, at unsettled to major storm levels on Saturday, and unsettled to minor storm levels on Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 1% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible today, with a predicted probability of 30% today through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 5% chance predicted today through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see D-layer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. To see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from Radio Sun data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the CQMM DX Contest on CW we mentioned earlier, also the Worldwide Holy Land Contest, the ES Open HF Championship, the Worked All Provinces of China DX Contest, the Dutch PACC Digi Contest, the World Time Zone Challenge, the EA QRP CW Contest, the Feldhell Sprint, the International Vintage Contest HF, the ARRL Rookie Roundup on SSB, the Florida State Parks on the air, Texas State Parks on the air, Georgia State Parks on the air, the Michigan State QSO Party, the Ontario QSO Party, the Quebec QSO Party, and the Run for the Bacon QRP Contest. As always, the K1 USN SSTs, MSTs, and CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. As always, all the links for everything we're about to discuss are in the show notes and also at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Michael KB9VBR tries out the Spooltenna Ultra. Sean W9FFF shows his D-Expert antenna system. Tim K50HY shows a remote band switching relay using Bluetooth. Mike K8MRD talks about links for end-fed half-wave antennas. Lewis M3HHY talks about why the FCC bans cellular-capable scanners. Hayden VK7HH gives his 5 favorite used amateur radios. Stuart VE9CF uses a parasitic vertical array to get gain and work DX while portable. Josh KI6NAZ uses a $40 card pewter to operate FT8 with a QMX. Kurt Owen7OFF shows an implementation of the Thetis SDR software on the web. Walt K4OGO uses a Yaesu FT897 on the beach. Mike K8MRD shows how he builds his ultimate linked Pactenna. Stuart VE9CF talks about mitigating noise to pull out weak signals. Hayden VK7HH builds a long-range mesh core repeater. And Mike K8MRD looks at the Digitenna end-fed half-wave spool-based antenna. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. Thanks as always for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.